From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Inside Politics.
Hello, everyone. I'm News Channel 5's political analyst, Pat Nolan. Welcome to Inside Politics. As we approach the end of 2021, it's been another challenging year for the nation. COVID-19, with its seemingly never-ending variants, continues to raise. While the economy has shown more signs of improvement, inflation has spiked to its highest level in nearly 40 years. That includes producer prices, which this week saw their largest one-month increase since they first began measuring that number back in 2010. Congress seems to be more divided than ever, beginning with the insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th. One person in the middle of all of this is Nashville Democratic Congressman Jim Cooper. He's our guest on Inside Politics this week. Congressman Cooper has always been willing to come on the program and answer questions. Therefore, we appreciate him being back with us. Congressman, welcome back to the program and back in studio.
Thank you, Pat. Good to see you, and Merry Christmas.
Same to you. Coming into this month, it looked like Congress, as usual, was behind on its work about funding the government on an ongoing basis, keep paying our debts, and also funding our national debt. We've made some progress in that area, but it looks like it's temporary. I mean, you did break the deadlock over the latest debt crisis. Both parties agreed for a one-time vote by Democrats, foregoing a need for a filibuster in the Senate. Democrats rejected that idea a couple of weeks ago. Why'd they accept it now?
Well, Congress is really good at procrastination, and once again we showed that, and that's true whichever party is running Congress. But the really good news is we didn't have any government shutdowns or anything like that like we had in past years.
But from a party point of view, you're going to get blamed for raising the national debt by $2.5 trillion.
The debt ceiling increase vote is a very curious one. We're almost the only nation in the world that even has that vote, because all it does is ratify spending that you've already agreed to. So it's a little bit of a political gotcha vote. When people have already voted for the spending and now they don't want to allow for it to be paid for, you should be able to be consistent. And many of my colleagues want to have it both ways. They want to have their cake and eat it too.
This didn't buy a whole lot of time. You are going past next year's midterm elections before you have to deal with this same problem again. But what would be a better way to deal with this situation in the future? After all, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting to get a different outcome is the definition of insanity.
Well, it's a political curiosity, as is, the whole system of government, because think of it. Does any corporation in the world or any nonprofit have two boards of directors? Well, that's what Thomas Jefferson and the founders gave us. And oftentimes those House and Senate are fighting with each other. So that makes it confusing at best. So it's kind of a miracle that the government works at all, because this is a very dysfunctional and unique governance mechanism that we've got.
Perhaps another miracle of the government is the government spending authorization, which this time has only been kicked down the road to the middle of February, which is not very long at all. Why won't Congress do its job every year and pass a budget? And aren't these continuing resolutions that you do pass bad public policy?
I couldn't agree with you more, Pat. Congress should do its work and do it on time. I've had a proposal for years, no budget, no pay, that we wouldn't even draw a check unless we did our fundamental work. My proposal became law in 2015, but unfortunately they didn't make it permanent. It was only in place that 1 year. We need to bring that back so that we don't get paid unless our work is done on time.
But most members of Congress are so independently wealthy, if they lost their congressional pay, what difference would that make?
Oh, you'd be surprised. It turns out that rich people like money more than anybody else. That's one of the reasons that they're rich. So what it does is it gets the pillow talk right. The congressional spouse, whoever it is whispers at night, I think you better do your work on time, dear, because we've got Christmas coming up, we got bills to pay, let's get this done.
Speaking of a lot of money, I have not mentioned President Biden's multi-trillion-dollar Build Back Better bill, which is passed in the House, but seems to be completely stuck in the mud again in the Senate. Democrats say that the president says this is a transformational, great kind of bill, going to do great things for the country, but why can't he get the Democrats united, including especially Senator Joe Manchin and Senator Sinema?
Well, you know what an even Congress it is. It's 50-50 Senate, and we only have a 3-vote majority out of the 435-person House. So the House has functioned, but in a 50-50 Senate, any senator thinks that his ideas are the best in the world. Every senator looks in the mirror and they see a future president. So their ability to grandstand and to show off is almost unlimited, and we've seen some of them do that this year.
Senator Manchin this week made some positive statements in some preliminary talks with the president, but end of the week it all seemed to fall apart. He started raising issues that Senate leaders said they were flabbergasted at. They must have been things they didn't think they thought he was on board about. It doesn't appear, the president says he's not going to get this bill passed by the end of this year. And even if he got it passed in the Senate, he'd probably have to go to a conference committee in the House anyway. I guess the question is, can the Senate make the kind of changes that the House is going to buy? Their definition of what is a good bill is very different from what Senator Manchin thinks.
Well, as you know, our Constitution says that the senators are independent. They only have to listen to their voters back home. And the trouble is, right now, President Biden isn't very popular in West Virginia or Arizona. And that allows the senators from that state to be rogue. And that's what they've done. And it's my understanding that Joe Manchin is extremely popular in West Virginia. So he's milking this for all it's worth.
The immigration provisions also got struck out of the bill again by the Senate parliamentarian. What's going to be left if the Senate passes the bill? Is it just going to be a shell of what the House did?
Well, we should be able to pass immigration reform in its own right. Congress is 30 years behind in doing that. But for various reasons, each party have found a reason to say no. To attach it to this budget bill, essentially this is a budget bill, really has nothing to do with the budget. So it's all technical, the Senate rules, and it turned out the Senate parliamentarian got cancer during all this, so that further delayed the process. And you can't predict a health problem, but it's ended up being a very confusing mess.
All these news stories seem to indicate there's a growing division within your party. Is this going to have long-term repercussions within the party, and particularly between members of the House and members of the Senate, and particularly involving these two senators we've been talking about?
Well, Pat, nobody knows politics better than you do, and you know that when you have a governing majority, then that's when the fractures appear, because everybody wants to have it their way. People aren't very good at behaving in Washington. They're not very good at listening to leadership, even a president or a speaker or a majority leader that they voted for. So that's one of the troubles. Everybody is technically equal in Washington, and that allows individuals to grandstand.
So what happens as we go forward? Do you think this bill has a chance in 2020, or are we pretty much seeing the beginning of the end of this bill completely, that nothing ever gets passed?
Only Senator Joe Manchin knows the answer to that question, and perhaps Senator Kristen Sinema. So we're going to be in suspense, it looks like, until January. And go ahead.
Nashville Congressman Jim Cooper is our guest. We're talking about the things going on in Washington this week. It's been another wild and crazy week and wild and crazy year in Washington. Back to continue our conversation after this break.
This is a Storm